Everybody clap, go. I want to see you put your hands together at home. Everybody clap, yo. Somebody put your hands up. Yeah. I'm feeling like this. Have you tried Jesus? He's alright. Have you tried my Jesus? He's alright. Have you tried Jesus? He's alright. Have you tried Jesus? He's alright. Have you tried Jesus? He's alright. Oh, you tried Jesus? He's alright. I wanna know, have you tried him? He's alright. Have you tried Jesus? He's alright. He's alright. He's alright. He's alright. Do you know him? He's alright. Have you tried him? He's alright. 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 Say this with me. Alright, 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 everything about it, everything about it, everything about it. Everybody clap, yo. Y'all is feeling like my grandmama's church. Everybody clap. Miranda, you got one? There's a storm now on the ocean, and it's moving this way. If your soul anchored in Jesus, you will drift away. Yeah, there's a storm out on the ocean, and it's moving this way. If your soul anchored in Jesus, you will drift away. Drift away. Drift away. You will surely drift away. Somebody say if your soul anchored in drift away. Everybody clap, go. Pick 'em up, put 'em back high. Y'all say that with me. Pick 'em up, put 'em back high. Pick 'em up, put 'em back high. What you hear? I get joy when I think about it. 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 I get happy when I think about it. Happy when I think about it. Come on, sing it like you feel it. I get joy when I think about it.
An acknowledgement to you, beloved. It's gray outside, but I think the sun is shining in here. The S-O-N, that's Jesus the Christ. Amen. Amen. Welcome to our worship experience again today. Amen. The second Sunday of June. Y'all all right this morning? Seem like we're a little down this morning. Okay. Amen. Amen. I don't want to do like Pastor, put your right foot in, take your right foot. Come on, we got to wake up. Amen. Amen. We give you thanks to you, oh God, with our whole hearts. Before all creation, we will acknowledge you with our praises. We bow down towards your holy temple and give thanks to your name for your steadfast love and your tender faithfulness. For you, O God, have exalted your name and your word above everything. On this day we call, you answered. On this day we were weak. You gave us strength of our soul. We thank you, O God, for this is truly the day that you have made. We, your people, acknowledge and are glad in it. Amen. Amen. Let us prepare. Let us go to God in prayer. Amen. Our God, we wait for you on this day. We tarry here in your temple. God, we don't want to move any further until we feel your presence. Take your rightful place. Control of this worship service. Touch and anoint every person inside these four walls. God, reach out to those who are worshiping with us online. Began to transform us all anew. Let us see you more clearly on this day. Let us praise you, fruit from the depths of our soul. Open our hearts to receive the word that you have deposited in our pastor today. And we'll be so careful to give you all of the glory, all of the praise on this day. For it is in Jesus, the risen, reigning, and returning Savior, we pray. Amen, amen, and amen. Beloved, Pastor will come and lead us with the chant. But prior to him coming, can you just shake whatever it is that's on you right now off? Just shake it off right now. Because I feel a heaviness. Shake it off. You are in the house of God. And in the house of God, there is liberty. That word liberty means release for the captives. That word liberty means that you are now renewed. That word liberty means that what was holding you now has released you. Amen. Let us worship God in spirit and truth. And as we worship God, let's continue to seek so that God can search us. Amen. Amen.
Dearly beloved, each Sunday henceforth, this is the moment we've had our worship, our devotional service. Now this hymn that I've chosen is where we take time to reflect on ourselves. I know it's an unfamiliar one. I'll lead it, but even if you don't sing, if you just look at the word, we're going to sing this every Sunday. This is what we need to do in order to get started. Amen. Search me, O God, and know my heart today. Try me, O Lord, know my thoughts, I pray. See if there be some wicked way in me. Cleanse me from every sin and set me free. I praise thee, Lord, for cleansing me from sin. Fulfill thy word and make me pure within. Fill me with fire where once I burned with shame. Grant my desire to magnify thy name. Lord, take my life and make it wholly thine. Fill my poor heart with thy great love divine. My passion self and pride I now surrender. I now surrender, Lord, in me abide. Oh, Holy Ghost, revival comes from thee. Send a revival, start the work in me. Thy word declares thou wilt supply our need. For blessing now, O Lord, I humbly plead. Amen. We're going to sing this every Sunday. Search me, O Lord, and try my heart today. See, and we know that if he looks, he's going to see some wicked way in us. And so it is this moment, each Sunday will be the moment where we will take an introspective look as we prepare to worship God in spirit and in truth. Amen. We will now hear the reading of the scripture from Sister Barbara Gray. And let me say this now. Why she's coming to read the scripture. I told her a few minutes ago that on the second Sunday in September, we're going to come to church. We're going to have morning worship. When it ends, we're going to go downstairs and eat some donuts or something. And then about 1:30 or 2 o'clock, she's going to preach her initial sermon. Now, she just found that out this morning. And she said, "Who told you that?" And I said, "The Lord." Amen. So y'all pray for her. Ready, set, go. Amen. Amen. Let us continue in worship.
I'm going to be reading Deuteronomy chapter 31, verses 6 through 8. Will everyone please stand for the reading of the word, if you can. That's Deuteronomy chapter 31, verses 6 through 8. Amen. Be strong and courageous. Do not be afraid or terrified because of them. For the Lord your God goes with you. He will never leave you nor forsake you. Then Moses summoned Joshua and said to him in the presence of all Israel, "Be strong and courageous, for you must go with this people into the land that the Lord swore to their ancestors to give them, and you must divide it among them as their inheritance. The Lord himself goes before you and will be with you. He will never leave you nor forsake you. Do not be afraid. Do not be discouraged." Amen.
Amen. Amen. Thank you so much. And as we prepare to sing our hymn, let's give Doc a couple of moments to catch his breath so that he can come lead us as only he can. Just to remind Brother Cooksey, you're on at the announcement. Amen. A little shake of the head. Brother Cooksey, amen. Your announcement that you'll do today. I just want to make sure to remind you. Amen. Amen. Let us hear from our pastor as he comes and leads us with our hymn, I Have Decided to Follow Jesus. Amen.
Everybody, I know we've already made that decision. That's why you're here. But we just reaffirm it. Amen. I have decided to follow Jesus. I have decided to follow Jesus. I have decided to follow Jesus. Everybody, no turning back, no turning back. Though none go with me, still I will follow. Though none go with me, still I will follow. Though none go with me, still I will follow. No turning back, no turning back. The cross before me, the world behind. The cross before me, the world behind me. The cross before me, the world behind me. The cross before me, the world behind me. No turning back, no turning back. I have decided, I have decided to follow Jesus. Oh, I have decided to follow Jesus. I have decided to follow Jesus. No turning back, no turning back. Why don't you say amen? No turning back. Amen.
Amen, amen, amen. No turning back, no turning back. I saw Deacon Boston Cherry head to the back for the announcements. We are at that place in the worship service. I guess maybe I will go ahead on in her stead, amen. She's coming right back? Okay. Well, prior to her coming, let me go ahead and make my announcement so that you all hear. Amen. Can you all hear me? Amen. You all hear me, right? I got witnesses, Doc, that they said they heard me. Next Sunday is Father's Day. Hello, somebody? It's Father's Day next Sunday. And so we ask for all of the fathers to make sure you find your way into the house of the Lord on tomorrow. For those of you who honor your father, make sure you're here to honor dad. But we have our pastoral kind of father that we want to honor on next Sunday. Amen, somebody? Amen. Amen. We have, as long as I've been here, I know, maybe even before, that on Father's Day, we make sure that we bring a little some extra for our pastor. Amen. And so this next Sunday will be no different. So we ask that you bring the special offering because his birthday is the following Tuesday, right? I had it right. The following Tuesday. So we want to give him his birthday gift and Father's Day gift on next Sunday. Amen. Y'all, I already got witnesses that you heard me. Amen. Amen. So I know the mic is working. And for those of you who are worshiping with us virtually and you are members of this house of worship, we ask that you also send in via mail or via electronically so that we can honor Pastor on next Sunday for his birthday as well as Father's Day. Amen? Amen. I only get to make this announcement once because next Sunday's Father's Day, so please heed it accordingly. Amen? Deacon Boston Cherry, will you please come? Following her, we're going to ask Brother Cooksey to come with his special announcement. Amen.
Good morning, Goodwill. These are the announcements for the week. To Reverend Sears, officers, members, and friends, thank you so much for your support yesterday. I was honored to be recognized for my contribution to the Yankee Food Program, which is not only benefits our members, but also our community. It was truly gratifying to see so many familiar faces supporting this event. It is a pleasure to work with you and serve this congregation alongside with so many dependable and dedicated members who work tirelessly to ensure we are doing our part to support our community. Once again, thank you for your encouragement and collaboration on this successful endeavor. May God continue to bless and keep you always. Trustee Jackie Buchanan. This week, our Sunday school lesson is week 41, Philippians, devoted all to Christ. Focal verse is Philippians, the 2nd chapter, the 1st through 11th verse. Join us on Tuesday at 6 p.m. with Deacon Esther Mojo, or Thursday at 7 p.m. with Reverend Anne-Marie White. On Wednesday, June 19th at 7 p.m., we will have our prayer on Zoom. This will be the last prayer service before the summer. We are asked to pray individually. We will resume the prayer and the hymn study in September. This afternoon at 4 p.m. here at Goodwill Baptist Church, Brother Corey Gray is having a service highlighting talented youth and young adults. Please come out and support him. Pastor Sears and congregation will be the guests of New Tabernacle Baptist Church, the Reverend Hammond Ratliff, pastor, on Sunday, June 23rd at 3 p.m. in celebration of their church anniversary. They will be preparing a meal before the service from 1:30 to 2:45. The service will be immediately following that. We still have tickets for the banquet for Reverend James Wilson. You can see me to purchase a ticket. The tickets are $200. Thank you.
Good morning, Goodwill. Morning, Pastor Company. I first want to thank you for this opportunity to share this information that I was blessed with. I'm sorry. As an actor, I should know that. Okay. Again, I just want to thank you, Pastor, and the Pulpit Company for allowing me to share this information that I received on June 4th. I've been trying to get a will. This is one of my bucket list kind of things. As life goes on, you don't know when you're going to be here and when you're going to go. But he says, I always listen to my mom say, put your house in order. And being here truly by myself as a family, I have really no family members that I can kind of lean on to this. So, but you put things in order. So I was blessed by my niece. She now resides in Cincinnati, Ohio. She's a registered social worker. And I had expressed this information to her that I want to get my will done. I've been procrastinating. You know, we put things off. We think it was going to always be here. But there comes a time you have to say, enough is enough. So, blessed through her, she informed me that there is an organization called VOLS, V-O-L-S, Volunteers of Legal Services. And they are non-for-profit. They do many different works, and one of them including helping seniors. I am a senior, praise God. To get a living will together, and it's done pro bono. Let me say that again. Pro bono. F-R-E-E. I didn't believe it, but I went with it. I did the research, spoke to the people, had an intake paper sent in, and was approved. So on June 4th, I met with a team of people, not just one person. They gave me a lawyer, a notary, 2 witnesses, and a representative of the organization. We did this, and I'm still trying to pinch myself that I was there, in Michael Bloomberg's main office on Lexington Avenue. I never tell you that I was a little overwhelmed, and you can definitely see the money in that building from a man that has so much money. And this team worked with me from approximately 1 o'clock in the afternoon to 8:30 p.m. and constructed an entire will and testament. I'm still waiting for the shoe to drop to say, well, we're going to charge you so much. But that didn't happen. I was given the will. I was given copies of the will for my executors. I was given copies for those that were like a health proxy, all that were connected to this document. I had copies for these people that stood up for me to have this done. So I thought it not robbery to share, because God tells us we can't hold everything to ourselves. We are to share what we have for others, because you're not the only one in this situation. So I put together just a brief presentation to let you know of this organization. Again, they're called VOLS, V-O-L-S, Volunteers of Legal Services. Volunteers of Legal Services supports pro bono in order to provide low-income and under-resourced New Yorkers with free legal services. They are a well-established nonprofit organization that's been in existence since 1994. When leaders establish nonprofit organizations that's been in existence, leaders in private bar response to severe federal government budget cuts to legal services, they partner with New York's community-based organizations, law firms, and companies to provide free legal services to New Yorkers with limited access to resources. For example, children. They have a children's profit, which helps children from low-income families in school and hospital-based settings access safe housing care. Immigrant Project which supports immigrant youth so they can access security, employment, and education opportunities. Incarcerated Mothers Low Project, which provides family low service to mothers and parents in prison. Micro Enterprise Project, which provides transactional services so New Yorkers small business can thrive. My favorite, Senior Low Project, which empowers older New Yorkers, 60 plus, by providing incapacity and end-of-life planning so they can age in a place of dignity and without being homeless. Others are Veterans Initiative and benefits, which helps low-income New Yorkers more equitable access to public benefits that helps them meet their basic needs. Their office is located at 40 Worth Street, and you can access their website and telephone number through Google. If anyone needs the number, I do have the number, but as you can go to Google, look up VOLS, V-O-L-S, Volunteers of Legal Services. Everything will come up, their website, and you can insert yourself and pass this on to everyone you know, because we're living in a time that the economy is out of control. We know that we go shopping, we know that housing, we know that everything is accelerated and sometimes beyond what we can afford. So to God be the glory to pass on and give information. I thank you, Pastor. I thank the pulpit community to let me share this, because I was truly full when I walked out of that office with those documents, and knowing I even walked from where I was a distance I never thought I would walk, because I was just filled with God and the grace of his mercy. So to God be the glory. Thank you again for letting me allow this, and have a blessed day as we continue on worshiping. God bless.
Amen. Thank you so much again, Brother Cooksey, for sharing such valuable information. We do hope that you take heed of it. And as I was told by Deacon Sharon Tillman, that we will have it on the website, on the Facebook page, so that you don't have to worry about searching right now. She will have it put up on the Facebook page. And again, the ushers do have the envelopes that they'll have ready for you for next week's love offering for Pastor. You can grab that from them today. Now we prepare our hearts and minds for prayer. For truly, the scriptures do declare, the prayers of the righteous availeth much. And as Pastor comes, we ask you to prepare your hearts and minds to not only hear him pray, but also pray with him and for him. Amen. Sorry. I'm sorry so much. Come on, Trustee Davis, as she will read the list. And we ask that you look and find that name that you need to pray for. Amen.
To our Pastor Sears, our Reverend Jones, our Sister Barbara Gray. This is our sick report for Sunday, June 9th, 2024. Deacon Renee and Deacon Tyrone Cherry and the Henley/Willoughby family is asking to continue prayer for their brother, uncle, who is in Lincoln Hospital in hospice. Reverend Stephen V. Jones is asking continued prayer for his childhood friend, Theo Hawkins. Sister Elise Rollet is asking prayer for her cousin, Elijah Hilbert, who was taken to the hospital this past Friday with a perforated gallbladder and respiratory issues. He's in cardiac ICU. We are so happy to report that Reverend Anne-Marie Weiss is home. Let's keep her in continued prayer. Our bereavement. We're asking continued prayer for Sister Lucille Garrett and family. Her daughter, Pamela Louise Garrett, was funeralized on Friday, June 7, 2024, at Holy Tabernacle Church. Sister Eunice Watkins is asking prayer for her friend Deborah and family. Deborah's godson, Milton, passed away. We ask that we keep our former First Lady Michelle Obama and her family in prayer in the passing of her mother, Miss Marianne Robinson, on last Friday, June 1st, 2024. This ends our sick report. Please remember our sick, shut-in, our aged, and bereavement with cards, calls, visits, and especially in your prayers. Please notify the church office if you are not well, and please let us know when you're up and out again. God bless.
Amen. It's time to have a little talk with Jesus and tell him all about our struggles. We're living in some perilous times. But God is also good. Can't you say amen? His mercies are new every morning. We're glad to hear the reports. The Reverend Anne Marie Weiss returned home on the 6th of June. And God is doing marvelous things. All of us here had a triple bypass because we are here this morning. Amen. We bypassed death. We bypassed the grave. And some of us bypassed sickness and pain. As we come, if there's someone who is in need of special prayer, come here to the mercy seat where the officers can gather around you and we can have a little talk with Jesus. I once was lost in sin, but Jesus took me in. And then a little light from heaven filled my soul. He bathed my heart in love, and he wrote my name above. And just a little talk with Jesus makes me whole. Now let us have a little, let us tell him all about he will hear our faintest cry, and he will answer by and by. Now when you feel a little prayer wheel turning, and you'll know a little fire is burning, you will find a little talk with Jesus makes it right. Oh, let us have a little talk. Let us tell him all about our struggle. He will hear our faintest cry, and he will answer by and by. Now when you feel a little prayer wheel turning, then you'll know a little fire is burned. You will find a little talk with Jesus makes it right. Eternal God, our Father, we come because we stand in the need of prayer. We come as weak and weary travelers before a strong and mighty God. We come as sinners saved by grace. We thank you for the wonderful grace of Jesus that is greater than all our sin. Grace woke us up this morning. And your grace started us on our way. It's by your grace that we made it to this house of prayer. By grace, those who are virtual are able to worship without being physically present in the sanctuary. We thank you for your amazing grace. Lord, as we come, we confess we've fallen short of your glory. But you still smile on us. You woke us up this morning and started us on our way. You protected us. You kept us in the midst of trials and tribulations. In the midst of sickness, death, and distress, you kept us in the midst of financial depravity. You kept us in the midst of heartache, anguish, anxiety, and depression. You stood by us as a friend that sticketh closer than a brother or a sister. We thank you for allowing us to utter your name, to utter the name of Jesus. Jesus. Oh, how sweet the name. Jesus, every day the same. We call on you in his name. Have mercy on us, Lord. We live in this world in the midst of chaos, calamity, crime, and corruption. But we know that all power is in your hands. Hear our prayer. We come praying for the sick, hospitals, and other institutions all over the world, caring for the suffering, the horrible war going on in Hamas, where we see daily the innocent being killed decapitated, bombed in the midst of war. Oh Lord, we pray that we will lay down arms and study war no more. We pray for the things that go on the streets of this city, New York. The bus driver that was stabbed or cut yesterday. Victims of slashing just as they walk down the streets. Gunfire falling like raindrops. Men and women waxing cold at the word of God. But Lord, we are calling on you. Have mercy on us. Lord, we thank you. Without you, there's nothing that we can do. But with you, all things are possible. Bless this waiting congregation. We thank you for the pulpit company, Reverend Jones and Sister Barbara Gray. We thank you for Brother Corey Gray. We thank you for the deacons and trustees. We thank you for the congregational leaders. We thank you for you're the fount of every blessing. We come asking you to search our hearts. Cleanse us. Heal us. Help us. But above all, hear our prayer, O Lord. Lord, we need you like we've never needed you before. Oh Lord, we bow humbly before you, asking you to have mercy on us and thanking you for what you've already done. Hold us, keep us, strengthen us, is my prayer. In the name of Jesus. Jesus. Oh, how sweet the name. Jesus. Every day the same. Thank you for sending your son. In his name I pray. Amen. 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 He will hear our faintest cry, and he will answer. Now when you feel a little prayer wheel turn, and then you'll know a little fire is burned. Let us have a little talk with Jesus, makes it right. It is time now to worship God with our giving. Amen. We want to thank you for how you're constantly supporting the ongoing work of this church. Amen. God loveth a cheerful giver. We're grateful for what you've done and for what you're going to do. That's both here in the sanctuary, and we thank those who worship with us virtually. Amen. Those who are our members who are unable to be here, and those who worship us because they know us or they know of us. Some I get calls, people just happen to be Googling, and they run up on Goodwill Baptist Church. Amen. And some of them contribute. And we are grateful to those of you who are virtual, those who are present here this morning. Let us now prepare to worship God with our giving. And as the officers come, Sister Buchanan, God bless you. Wonderful day. I wanted to be there and to say I sent my money. I didn't send it, I sent it. Amen. When you hear somebody say they sent, then it went there. Amen. I'm sorry I was unable to attend, but my prayers and congratulations go out to you. Amen. Let us now prepare to worship God with our offering. Let us pray. Eternal God, we thank you for being the constant, tireless giver of every good and perfect gift. Bless now as we come to render unto you that which is yours, for everything belongs to you. Bless the gift and the givers. Multiply our gifts so that the kingdom, your kingdom here on earth, can be effective in doing your will. Bless us all. And bless our gifts. And we thank you for allowing us the opportunity to be a part of your kingdom. In the name of Jesus, I pray. Amen. We'll be guided by the ushers as Brother Corey Gray gives us the marching music.
Amen, amen, amen. Thank you so much for your giving and for the upbuilding of Jesus Christ's kingdom here at the Goodwill Baptist Church. Amen, amen. Let's prepare our hearts and minds to receive the holy spoken word of God through our esteemed pastor. As Dayla is already back there, as she will lead us with the sermonic selection. And remember that on the fourth Sunday is graduation Sunday, and the stream team, particularly Deacon Tillman, is asking that all of those who have graduates, granddaughters, grandsons, sons, daughters, nieces, nephews, cousins, friends that will be graduating as affiliated through this church, we want to make sure that we acknowledge them. So get that information in at least by next Sunday so that she can have it prepared, because it will be a slide presentation. So make sure that we do that. So those who are graduating, we want to make sure we honor those. Amen. And if I could, Pastor, on that Sunday, that we have some of our youth to sing. Particularly, I know, D-Law, we want you back in the back there working with Brother Gray. Amen, amen. Shake your head. Amen, amen. On graduation, and then we're going to also ask for Maya. Also, if somebody gets word to Maya, so that she can be here, as well as I know our two lovely singers. Amen, amen. Oh, did I miss something? Oh, we want Brandon. Brandon, yes. Oh, yes. Thank you. We could get Brandon to do his beautiful miming, amen, on that fourth Sunday. So make sure you get our youth back on fourth Sunday. We celebrate them as well, amen. We turn it over back into the hands for the service.
Can we all say amen? It is in the matchless name of Jesus the Christ that I greet you on this, I guess it's still raining, this rainy 9th day of June in the year of our Lord 2024. To our worship leader and assistant to the pastor, Reverend Stephen V. Jones, by September, soon to be Minister Barbara Gray. Pray for her. As she takes on the mantle. Amen. To our diaconate and trustees, congregational leaders, members of this congregation, physically and virtually, to our ushers, to our director of music, to all of you, my Father's children, grace and peace be unto you from God our Father and from Jesus, who is the Christ. It's a pleasure and a privilege. I'm glad to be here. Amen. Whenever you have a chance, together with fellow believers, don't take it for granted. Amen. We're living now in a turbulent world. As Reverend Jones talked about Father's Day and in my born day, I've been thinking for a while, where did the time go so fast? Time is fast. Now, time is slow if somebody owes you some money. The time is fast if you owe somebody. Amen. So you can use it. And here we are on the 9th day of June. I hope I got it right. Sister Jackie, Reverend Burkett texted me the other day, and he said, "Are you all right? I haven't heard anything from you in a couple of days. I need some help from Deacon Sharon Tillman, Sister Elise Roley, or somebody that's some of my grandchildren. They're a long way to figure out how to use this thing. You think you have it down, then it's something else. Y'all know that I do the texting every day. So anyway, Reverend Burkett said, Reverend, are you all right? I haven't heard anything from you. And the reason, this rheumatoid had my hands, and I need my fingers. Those of you who text, you know you need that. And it's time, well, I've got longer than I want. The 22nd of July is when I'm scheduled for my next infusion, but it looked like it ran out the 22nd of May, but there's nothing they can do about it. I just got to bear the toil and endure the pain, supported by his word. Amen. So stand up. And so I said to Reverend Burkett, I said, I missed a couple of days. Number one, they said something needed to be uploaded on my phone, and I don't know what it is. But they said they couldn't do it because I had too much of something on there. So finally, I sent him a text, and it said something. I think it was the 5th of June. And he said, well, thank you, Dr. Sears, but today is the 6th. Y'all caught that. I was a day late, a day early, a day something. But here we are. Y'all all right this morning? In the book of Deuteronomy, which is really the second book of the law, it repeats itself. Deutero. Like in the book of Isaiah, you have two writers. From chapter 1 to about chapter 34 or 35 is the eloquent prophet around Jerusalem who said in the year that King Uzziah, but the old preachers call him Uzziah, died, I also saw the Lord. And then the language in Isaiah changes around chapter 35, and it's the prophet of the exile. It's another writer. Comfort ye, my people. The people have been taken away into Babylonian captivity. And here in Deuteronomy, chapter 31, the Lord has given me a pretty tough row to plow here this morning. I just ask you to bear with me. Amen. Sister Barbara Gray read it. Chapter 31, verses 6, 7, and 8. And it's Moses giving instruction to Joshua as their wilderness days are coming to an end. And Moses has led them as far as God intends for him to go. Now, the mantle is cast upon Joshua. The Lord will give them over to you, and you shall deal with them in full accord with the command I have given you. Be strong and bold. Have no dread of them, because it is the Lord your God who goes with you. Then Moses summoned Joshua and said to him in the sight of all Israel, be strong and bold, for you are the one who will go with this people into the land that the Lord has sworn to their ancestors to give them. And you will put them in possession of it. It is the Lord who goes before you. He will be with you. He will not fail you or forsake you. Do not fear or be dismayed. I want to talk from the subject, onward march. Can you say that? Now, I warned you beforehand that if anybody is suffering from insomnia, that's the lack of sleep. You just might get it this morning. You might get your sleep. Because I'm going to be, the Lord has led me to take a historical path. I need to go back in order to come up, in order to go forward. On last week, what day was it? June 6th. If you were watching television or listening to the news, and you don't need to become enamored, I know now we like to shut it off because it's so much despair and dismay on the news. Y'all can say amen. And some just say, I just don't watch, I turn it off. I'm not enamored. I don't watch it 24/7, but I can't live without knowing what's going on. I've been a listener, a reader of current events almost as long as I've known myself. Matter of fact, it's not bragging, I don't even remember when I didn't know how to read. I think I might have learned early. I learned reading early. I learned a whole lot of other things late. But growing up, as a boy in Columbia, South Carolina, I was born 2 years prior to the infamous day, December 7th, 1941. when the Japanese forces bombed Pearl Harbor on a somber Sunday morning. America was caught asleep. Thousands of lives were lost. Ships were sent to the depths of the sea. America declared war that same Sunday evening. President Franklin D. Roosevelt called it the Day of Infamy. And I told you, get your sleep in. Last week, June 6th, was the celebration of D-Day. I forget what the D stood for. It was Doomsday for nearly 4,000 young American men. It was a death trap as the U.S., the Allied forces, you had two forces. You had the Allies, which was the United States, Britain, the United Kingdom, France, even Russia formed the Allies. The Axis was comprised of Germany under Adolf Hitler and Italy under what they called the soft underbelly of the Axis, Benito Mussolini. Germany and Italy had conquered nearly every country in Europe. They had a stronghold. Hitler rose to power, his Monarchy, his white supremacy, his extermination of millions of Jews in places like Auschwitz and others. I told you get your sleep in, but I'll get to the wake up point. And so on June 6th, thousands upon thousands, a force of probably 120,000 allies under the direction of the Allied commander, General Dwight David Eisenhower, the British Field Marshal Montgomery, American General Omar Bradley, along with others, planned this assault to free Europe from the hand of tyranny. It was a cruel war. Our sons and daughters, tanned and blackened by the sun, talking about African Americans, went to war just like everybody else. My uncle, I had three really. Two survived Pearl Harbor. And the surrogate uncle that you hear about in history, Dory Miller. Dory Miller, my uncle Clark Simmons, who was a lieutenant commander in the Navy, he came here one Sunday. A couple of times he threw the wreath off the Intrepid into the Hudson River. African Americans went to war to fight against Nazism and fascism. Now, I would put you to sleep if I took time, which I won't, to explain what they meant politically or philosophically. But to sum it all up, it was just plain everyday language racism. Y'all gonna pray? Hitler had his hatred of the Jews. The fascists under Benito Mussolini had his hatred, and it was based also upon the Jews, but also it also included people of other races, non-Italians. It was a right-winged philosophy. Right wing. We know what the right wing means. On this 9th day of June in 2024, because we see it in evidence every day. I thought on June 6th, 1945, I think I was 4, about to turn 5, but my house, our home was filled with periodicals. Life magazine, Look magazine, the Saturday Evening Post, and all kinds of newspapers. The State, which was the daily paper of Columbia. And then I lived in a house where we had all of the black newspapers. You had Ebony magazine. You had the Afro-American newspaper, the Pittsburgh Courier, Chicago Defender. Because in those days, that's the only way you could read the truth about what was going on among us. Y'all praying with me? The hero in those days was who? In the black community. Joe Louis. I say, I know I'm talking, now some of y'all in here right long there with me, and I know I'm I'm way ahead of, talking about in time with Jones and Barbara Gray, Corey. For most of you. I've spent 84 years and 11 months and how many other days till the 18th. We had the Tuskegee Airmen. They put a movie out about them. Long story short, African American men and women went into the armed forces, the WACs, the Women's Army Corps. African American men went in by the thousands and fought with distinction. They fought bravely. I remember I mentioned a couple of weeks ago, Brother Sampson Howell. Brother Howell served Brother Mobley in the 3rd Army under General George Patton. And he told me how they were bogged down for nearly 30 days. General Rommel and the Panzer Division of Hitler's Third Reich had them pinned in. Supplies were low and they couldn't move forward until the supply trucks arrived. The supply trucks were mostly driven by guess who? That's right. Negro soldiers, as they were called them, even though they were fighting for a cause for freedom, they were fighting in a segregated army. They did not have equal access. I heard one gentleman tell me, Deacon Peterson, that he's served on a post in the United States waiting to be sent overseas. But they had captured German soldiers, brought them to America where if they escaped, they wouldn't know where they were. But on the base where this gentleman was served, the captured German soldiers could go into the officers' club, have a drink, order a meal. And they were in the American Army and could not go in. D-Day was glorified, and it is. It was a horrible day. A death trap, in reality, for the Germans were entrenched in a hill, and they had a good angle to shoot. And some 4,000 to 6,000 lives were lost. If you were watching television, you saw President Biden make the speech at Normandy at what is Omaha Beach. I told you I would get y'all in your sleep. What are you talking about? Well, in Deuteronomy, Moses is now at the end of his journey. He has led them for 40 years, and the reins are being turned over to Joshua. And he says, onward march, but be bold, and be of good courage. For the Lord is with you. Now, come 80 years later, to this Sunday morning, July 9th, June 9th, 2024. And the fascism that they fought against in Europe is now alive in America. Y'all better say amen. I don't have to call any names. But fascism believed in a superior race and a master leader, and that all rule of law, everything that was done came from one person. They could unlock and let who they wanted to let out of jail. And now, 80 years later, what they fought to defeat is now alive in our midst. Don't fool yourselves. What a sad story. On last week in Wisconsin, I think I sent it to you, a graduation took place. Y'all saw it? I'm messing up your sleep now. And a young white girl walked across the stage to receive her high school diploma. And her daddy got up out of the auditorium and ran on the stage and pushed the black superintendent out of the way because he didn't want his daughter to shake a black man's hand. Y'all didn't read it? So now, here we are. We're not second class, because your uncles and granddaddies and grandmamas went and served to secure freedom for Europe, only to come back home. And the freedoms that they fought for in a foreign land, in the uniform of the United States, the Navy, the Army Air Force, the Marines. Well, the Marines, believe it or not, were all white. The Marine Corps did not desegregate until it was the last branch of the military to desegregate. Somewhere in North Carolina, a Marine was slapped, African American, by a white policeman because he said he must have stolen the uniform. What's the point of all this, Reverend Sears? We didn't get up for this. Well, the audience that should be hearing this, for the most part, Generation Z, Gen Z, they're not in church much anymore. You are. But when you forget your history, when you forget your past, that's a terrible day. It's a terrible day. I never thought when I was 6 years old, America, on August 6, 1945, I was getting ready to go to the first grade, dropped the atom bomb on Hiroshima, killed 100,000 people, and 2 days later, they bombed Nagasaki. But over the years, the Japanese economy, the country, Deacon Peterson, you don't rode the train over there, is far exceeding what goes on here, the technology. Most of the cars I grew up, everybody was driving Fords and Chevrolets. And somebody might get a little money and buy them a Roadmaster Buick. And the funeral homes had Cadillacs. But otherwise, we traveled with Pat Turner. What's Pat Turner? Pat your feet and turn the corner. If I didn't trust in God, I'd be crazier than I am right now. I lived, I was a participant in student sit-ins. I was an activist in Lawrence, South Carolina, when the schools desegregated in 1969. I was a 27 or 28-year-old pastor. Two of us, the Reverend Levan Johnson at White Plains Baptist Church and Booker T. Sears Jr. at Big Mount Zion. Large church, wealthy members. When they introduced me at the association, they said, "My God, Big Mount Zion is done called a baby." But school desegregation came, and the African American students were catching hell. Y'all excuse me for saying that, but y'all know I say it anyway. And we went to meet with the principal, Reverend Johnson and I, to tell him to try to work out something, because the African-American kids were about to go crazy. They were being mistreated. They were being abused. They were being stomped on, kicked on, and every other kind of thing that you could think. So we two young pastors, we were thrust into the forefront because the older pastor just kind of stayed back and peeped to see what's going on. And we went to meet with the principal. And when we got there first, his secretary told us that he was not in his office. But as we walked up the breezeway, a little garden walk, I could see him in the office. I said to her, "Do you have 2 doors to this place?" She said, "No." I said, "Well, then he's in his office, because we saw him." She went back, "Oh, he is." I said, "Well, you must be asleep on your job." So the principal met with us, and I'll be through so y'all can go home. We talked, and finally he said, let me tell you fellas something. My preacher, didn't call him pastor, my preacher is at home preparing to feed the flock on Sunday morning. Now, you do know, and you can check it, you do know that in a lot of these churches, even today, especially right-wing churches, evangelicals, I call them out, they don't have the liberty that I have. I know because I was friends with several Caucasian white ministers, preachers, and they would say, I don't know how you guys do what you do because we have to turn in our sermon on Wednesday to a committee. And the committee goes over the sermon and it red lines out what we should not say. But y'all don't do that. Y'all might tune me out, but you don't redline me. You can't do it. I wouldn't take it. And so in the final analysis, the principal said to us, we didn't send for the DNs. Now, y'all figure that out. And if the DNs want a mascot, let them go back to the Negro school. And if they want school colors, let them go back to the colored school. And if they want an alma mater, let them go back over there where they were and sing the alma mater that they know. Now, I mess up. But as for you two, y'all get out of my damn office. I don't have time to be bothered around. I said to him, you spoke judgment to yourself. He said, are you threatening me? I said, nope. But you spoke judgment. A few months later, he came down with cancer. They sent him to Emory. That was the big thing in Atlanta. Emory couldn't help him, Corey. They sent him to Duke, Jones, and Duke couldn't help him. He died about a year later. The principal of the high school, if anybody down, y'all, if anybody in Lawrence listening, y'all know it's the truth. When he died, they sent a letter around announcing his death. The funeral will be held at the First Baptist Church on a particular day at a particular hour. P.S. Only members of the white race can sit on the first floor. Any others will have to sit in the balcony. And do you know some of them Negroes went to that funeral and sat in the balcony at the funeral. The day that we met with him, that Wednesday, that Sunday, one of my members said to me, Reverend Sears, I want to talk to you. I said, yes, what is it? You and Reverend Johnson need to mind your business. You and Reverend Johnson don't know nothing about no education. What do you mean? Went to school just like he did. Well, you need to leave, y'all need to leave him alone, and you and Reverend Johnson don't need to be bringing no trouble to the church. Y'all need to stay out of and preach the gospel. I said, I preach the gospel, but I try to live the gospel. That Thursday, after that Sunday, they set my church on fire. But the Lord spared it. It didn't burn down. I said all that to say, insomnia is when you can't sleep. But now we've got folk, a generation that's sleeping when they ought to be awake. D-Day, horrible day. But guess what? Not many of us died at that particular place at Omaha Beach and Utah Beach and in Norman, and not many of us, because we were in the back. We were driving the trucks, and we were not trusted enough to bear arms to attack the enemy. But yet we did. We survived. And now in this 21st century, on June the 9th, 2024, the same thing that they fought against across the pond is now alive and well right here in this country. But I got a word for you, and I'll sit down. Moses told Joshua what was going to happen. You're going to have obstacles. The mighty walled city of Jericho. But I want you to be bold. And I say to us now, in this political climate in which we live, is no time for putting your head, what is your tail between whatever. It is no time. It's time now to stand. I've lived in a house growing up where I never thought I'd live to be 10 years old, because the Klan threatened to burn my daddy out every night. I was so glad. We sat down at the table one day and Daddy said, "You're going to be going to a new school." I said, "Where?" He said, "Spartanburg." I didn't know a bit more where Spartanburg was than the man in the moon. But I knew I wanted to get out of Anderson, because at least once a month, the Klan had a rally right across the street in the field. And I can still hear the voices saying, "Sears, we're going to burn you out." But thank God some folk were bold. Mama would get on the phone, because sometimes Daddy wouldn't be home. And she would call up the deacon. And the deacon would round up the other deacons. And they would come up the back part of our yard. Daddy called it a garden, but I call it a farm. All them rows of corn and sweet potatoes and okra and tomatoes, and Virginia, we call them string beans, and butter beans and field peas, Ellie. Amen. Now, Daddy said it was a garden, but that was a farm to me. But they would come up through the back with them brick loaders. Now, who know what a brick loader is? Old big shotgun. They would come and they would surround the house and they would yell across the street. And they would say, we're going to burn you out. And the deacon would say, come on. We waiting on you. I was so glad to get out of there. But I never thought, now here 75 years later, what we've gained, it looks like American fascism is going to take away what we have gained. But I want to say to you this morning, might be afternoon now, I don't know, but Martin Luther King said some things to us. We have some dangerous days in front of us. And we know it, and the thing that's so sad about it, that we are doing it in many instances. Somebody got to speak to these Gen Z dudes. We doing it to one another. What sense does it make somebody having a graduation party and you pass by opening up fire with 9mm guns and then running off, killing up our own people? Joshua told Moses told Joshua, don't be dismayed. Be bold. It's the Lord who's going before you. And I say to you, I've lived through that. I don't know how many more of them I have. I don't know how I lived through another world. My doctors say, but I asked one, I said, Doc, why do these nurses keep coming in here asking me the same question? You say, what is that? What's your date of birth? I've told them 100 times. And he said, well, Reverend, I'm going to tell you why. When they look at your chart and they look at the workings of your body, the workings of your body are 22 years different than your chronological age. I said, what you mean, up or back? He said, back. I said, well, I'm going to cash in on that one. I said, but please don't tell Goodwill that I got 22 more years. I know they'll throw up their hands and be ready to run somewhere like they are right now. But my brothers and sisters, all that we saw, if you didn't see it, we were left out. But we played a significant role. But I just want to say to you what Moses said to Joshua. He will be with you. He will not fail you or forsake you. Do not fear or be dismayed. Yes, if you're paying any attention to what's going on, we're living in some times of dismay. We're living in some times that are disturbing. We're living in times that are unnerving. You can't walk down the street, somebody gonna poke you in the face or slash you like they did the bus driver yesterday. But I want to let you know that God I serve is still in control. Storm clouds may rise. Strong winds may blow, but I can tell the world, wherever I go, I found a Savior. And we've got to keep on pressing on the upward way. New heights we are gaining every day, but still let us pray to heaven we found. Lord, plant our feet on higher ground. My brothers and sisters, don't go to sleep. God is not dead, nor doth he sleep. The wrong shall fail, the right prevail, with peace on earth, goodwill to men. And I thank God, God is on our side. God will see us through. Storm clouds may rise and strong winds may blow, but let's forward march. March on. March on. Be strong. Be bold. March on till victory is won. We living in times, to me, that are more dangerous than I saw in the segregated South. But brothers and sisters, let's not go asleep. Let's stay aware. Let's stay awake. And let us stand up, for God is truly on our side. Amen. I told you what I was going to do, and I did it. To God be the glory. Keep trusting in God. Trust in him who will not fail you. Whatsoever years may bring, if by earthly friends forsaken, still more closely to him cling. Hold to his hand. I don't care what the Supreme Court says. Hold to his hand. I don't care what Mike Johnson says. Hold to his hand. I don't care what Agent Orange says. Hold to his hand. God's unchanging hand. Build your hopes on things eternal. Hold to God's unchanging hand. Oh, if we never had to do it before, we got to do it now. If we ever needed the Lord before, we need him now. If we ever needed to pray, we need to pray now. If we ever needed to be close to God, we need to be close now. Be strong. Be bold. Be of good courage. For the Lord God is with you. It's turbulent right now. Somebody will say, I don't know what you're talking about. I'm doing all right. Look around. For inch by inch and moment by moment, things that we acquire are being taken away. Rise up, O men and women of God, and trust in the Almighty God. Amen. I trust in God wherever I may be, upon the land or on the rolling sea. Though come what may, from day to day, my heavenly Father watches over me. I trust in God. Wherever I may be, upon the land or on the rolling sea, though come what may, from day to day, my heavenly Father watches over me. Won't you stand? He makes the rose an object of his care. He guides thee, go through the pathless air, and surely he, Lord, he remembers me, my heavenly Father watches over me. I trust in God, though in the prison pen, I'll trust him even in the lion's den. Through flood or flame, through praise or blame, my heavenly Father watches over me. Here's what I want you to do. I trust in God. I know he cares for me on mountain peak or on the stormy sea. Though billows roll, the God I serve keeps my soul. My heavenly Father watches over me. I trust in God. I know he cares for me on mountain peak. Lord have mercy, or on the rolling sea. Though billows roll and times may be turbulent, God keeps my soul. My heavenly Father watches over me. Eternal God, as we are in the midst of turbulence and chaos, division, danger, even on this present day, we hear the words of your servant Moses telling us to be strong, be bold, be of good courage. Oh Lord, raise your people from lethargy to activism, from sleep to service. Precious Lord, take our hand, lead us on, help us stand. Some are tired, some are weak, some are worn. But through this seemingly night on this 9th day of June, in this season of overt racism and hatred, in this world where friends betray friends, in this world of abuse, help us to be bold and march onward so we can hear your voice say, well done. Oh Lord, help us to stand in these last and evil days. For we know that victory is already yours. And because victory is yours, victory is ours. We praise you, Lord. We thank you, Lord, for those who suffered in the past, those who fought on the battlefield only to be denied when they came back home. Help us as descendants to onward march until we hear you say, well done. And now unto him who is able to keep us all from falling and present us faultless before the presence of his glory with exceeding great joy, to the only wise God, our Savior, to him be glory and majesty, dominion and power, both now and ever. Let the church say,
Thank you for joining us today in worship. We pray that you were blessed by what you saw and heard today. Please like and share this service with your family and friends. Don't forget to subscribe to our page so you don't miss out on our next broadcast. This is Dorita Miller. May God bless you until we meet again.